Well, hello there and welcome to the kitchen of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for March 7th, the day of abstract structure. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of abstract structure. We have us what appears to be, what is it? Boom. It is a triangle maze sprouting from a tree branch. Juxtaposed to a deciduous tree leaf. That's right, almost triangular shape. That says, let's speak to the day of abstract structure. Hey, you know what? I would say it's pretty close, all right? Pretty interesting comparison there. A lot of the times these days, they'll have a visual representational image that doesn't seem to speak to the title or the day. That said, not altogether all too important. I just like folks to see what kind of dynamics I have in front of me here on the page. That said, what is important around these here parts is it's March 7th, and hence it must be somebody's birthday. So if your birthday is March 7th, I just want to say happy birthday. That's right. That's what's important. But if this finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that circumstance. But for everybody else joining us randomly, or more ideally to celebrate the March 7th birthday, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the birthday redirect, something I like to take a few minutes to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled a 5 and a 3 for an 8. I think those were the numbers I showed originally, though it may have been a 5 and a 7. Here nor there, I rolled a 5 and a 3 for an 8. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe, or the higher powers that be, if you like, will oftentimes put things in our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our aspirations. But a lot of the times as we're going through this life, we're very narrow or singular of focus. So we oftentimes have the blinders up to what's going on around us. Not to say we don't notice such things, but we might not lend them a whole heck of a lot of credence. So this is a little bit of a examination or an exercise, if you like, into getting those blinders off so we can pick up on the things going on around us and ostensibly notice what the universe is putting in our path. Now, how do we do this? Well, we need some kind of sign that's mutually agreed upon between us and the universe, something we can't help but recognize. That's right, your daily numbers there. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably ideal you get your own pair of dice so you can essentially let the universe take the wheel for you to drive. So you ascribe directional values and number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. And once you've done that, you just pick a place near and dear to your heart to go explore, or pick some place you've never been to before. And then, like I said, let the universe take the wheel. But once you get out to that place you've picked, if you decide to do this, like I said, get those blinders off, all right? You'll start soaking up everything around you like a sponge, because you never know, the day might also start to take on a little bit of a theme. It might not just be your numbers. You might start to notice something like, I don't know, triangular shaped mazes or deciduous tree leaves that keep popping up into your path, all right? Which would be a little bit unique considering it's still a cusp of winter there, or we've just kind of come out of it, if you like. So maybe seeing some leaves would be pretty interesting. That said, they don't have to be real things. They could also be just a visual representational images of as much. To say advertisements, murals on the sides of buildings, or, you know, those stickers that slap taggers put up on the side of transformer boxes, mailboxes, and what have you. It's just some kind of sign that the universe is with you on your path, all right? But it might not be the visual representational image. It could be just about anything. So that's why you gotta soak things up like a sponge. That said, you get off on your first directional value and time limit. Maybe you're not seeing much anything, just the everyday goings on. Well, never fret, just take it in stride. At least you're out there getting your steps in, right? That said, maybe you take a moment just to compose yourself, look around, see what you see, and you know what? Maybe that's when these numbers come into effect. You might just find yourself on old 35th Street or 8th Avenue, if you like, all right? I would take that as a sign you're on the right path. So you roll your dice again for another directional value time limit. Maybe at the end of this one, you find yourself in front of a building with, I don't know, 35 in the address. Hey, you know what? Maybe go in there, see what you see. Maybe it's a shop full of abstract structures, all right? You know, those old-timey wooden mazes with the ball bearing. I got to get it through there. Or, I don't know, who's to say? But you go in there, the person behind the desk asks you how they can help you. Hey, you know what? Just let them know what you're up to. Hey, I'm not in the market for anything. I'm just out here in the wild trying to see what kind of synchronicities I can drum up for my birthday. What are you talking about? Hey, you know what? Show them your dice. Maybe show them this video. They're apt to tell you you're crazy. They can't help you. And you said, that's all right. I'm just seeing what I can see. They said, yeah, all right. Well, see you later, all right? Okay, you head out the door, and what's this? Hey, maybe you bump into somebody you haven't seen for years, all right? If you hadn't stopped in that shop, you probably would have passed them right by, okay? So maybe you catch up with the folks. They're not doing anything. They're just out here trying to get some fresh air. And you know what? Maybe you tell them what you're up to, show them the dice, show them this video, and maybe they're just so apt to join you. So you guys can catch up and start stacking up some coincidences, some synchronicity if you like. And what's great about other people joining you on your journey is you're apt to beget more results because there's more than one person who are focused on the same thing, all right? So if you start to see, taste, touch, smell, intuit, even just a few some such synchronicities, you understand why I brought it up for you. So get out there and intuit a little bit of the magic if you like. It's your birthday. You should be doing something fun and interesting, I'd argue. All right. Think you get the idea of synchronicity? Let's dive in with your birthday reading. Your month is March. Your day is the 7th. Your sign is 15 to 17 degrees Pisces of the Pisces II period specifically. And your quality and element is mutable water. All right, March 7th, the day of abstract structure. Those complex individuals born on March 7 often live in a highly abstract world. Giving structure to this world is the great challenge which they must take on in life. Those born on this day who are able to find a concrete form of expression for their thoughts can meet with great success. And although their minds generally remain free to roam over very far out and abstract issues, career-oriented March 7 people usually manifest their ideas in highly practical ways, hopefully involving the popular support and participation of those around them. But whether they are involved in down-to-earth activities or not, they can give the impression of living on another plane of existence. Not surprisingly, those born on this day usually lead highly private lives away from their work. And in fact, the often lonely world of March 7 people is not an easy one to penetrate. Those who wish to be friends with them will find that it is necessary to be exceptionally patient and understanding, and above all, not too demanding. It is not that March 7 people find it difficult to give. Far from the contrary, for they can be very generous, but rather that they do not react well to direct pressure being applied to them. Usually their reaction is to withdraw, but both emotionally and physically. And when they are attacked or criticized, March 7 people only defend themselves to a degree, if at all, before pulling back into their own safe space. They learn very quickly who they can and cannot trust to be understanding and accepting of them. Somewhat secretive, however, they may be less than forthcoming as to what they expect from loved ones. For those whom they feel are deserving, March 7 people can be extremely giving of both their time and financial resources. And those born on this day are highly sympathetic to the needs of others on a basic human level. And thus justice and equality can be preoccupations of theirs. And though bound up with concerns of their society, however, they are not the most social of creatures. They may find one or two good friends more than enough for them. And some of the problems that March 7 people encounter include inconsistent energy, a lack of a rich social life, fears and instabilities, and a feeling of uncertainty about what it is that they are meant to do with their lives. And once they are able, however, to direct their diffuse energies in one meaningful line of endeavor. They can go very far, both to the heights and to the depths. Using their work as a wedge, they may even find themselves making impressive inroads socially. And March 7th people need to remain in touch with the thoughts and feelings of their family, social circle, and society at large, in bringing their sense of care and attentiveness to bear not only on their work, but on their personal concerns as well. They can build quite an impressive sort of life for themselves. They may or may not ever find the right person with whom to share their life, but they can certainly build firm friendships which serve as outlets for their great need to share affection. All right, quite the fascinating birthday breakdown. It ended on a little bit of a somber note, but that happens sometimes, all right? So that being said, I'd like to provide a little bit of a commentary on what we just read, sometimes make connections with days previous, also just things I found interesting. So let's dive into a little bit of a commentary, all right? We have, oh, I forgot to turn the page back. Here we go, March 7th, the day of abstract structure. All right, you're said to be complex individuals who often live in highly abstract ways. And the reading claims giving structure to things may be a great challenge in your life, but one in which you apparently take on. All right. Probably more importantly, I would say, too, considering a lot of people just endure a challenge. They don't necessarily take it on. So there's a bit of a passive versus dynamic or active facet there. So if you're very dynamic and active with it, all the better, I would say. All right. That's why I think it's important. Furthermore, it's those who find a means to create something as a way to express themselves in spite of such challenges, I'm assuming, who are said to find great success. And while you may let your mind ponder abstract notions, interestingly, you may find practical ways to realize such mental examinations, which I would argue is probably quite the challenge and hence quite a unique talent. All right, not a lot of people can put abstract notions into concise, coherent terms or find a way to express as much. So if you can do that, man, all the more power to you, I would say. Having said that, people may be apt to pick up on your abstract, otherworldly nature, all right? The likes of which is a novel inclusion, I would say, as I don't think I've come across it in this period. Which it might lead to highly private lives outside of work, however. And that is a trait that's been peppered all over this period. People escaping into their own private worlds outside of work, I mean. All right. Both these dynamics, I would assume, lend to this lonely, kind of hard-to-penetrate world that you're said to inhabit. And I like that they let you... I like that they let your friends know to be patient and not too demanding due to how you may react adversely to direct pressure. It's not often that the breakdown will go into providing advice for people that are the subject of the day in question. Sometimes they'll even talk about what it's like to be parents of somebody on the day, and they give out a little bit of advice that way. But again, they don't often do so. So I like that they included that for you. Such advice for parents and friends, like I said, rare inclusion in the breakdown. But continuing on, you're said to be generous, but learn quickly who you can and can't trust to be understanding, and it may be apt to retreat into that safe space that they mentioned when attacked or criticized, okay? And while this may seem specific to you, like I said, it has come up this period in a different variety of ways. Specifically for March 4th individuals, which also extends to this limited social creature aspect as well. But for them more specifically, they flourished in their isolation. Here that wasn't mentioned for you. They really drilled down on expanding that social dynamic for you. So again, even though there's some root thing that you might share, there's different commonalities within that particular space. So they don't apply writ large to everybody. What else do we have here? This element of inconsistent energy, however, is very novel, all right? And it sounds like one of the more challenging hardships you may face. So be sure to rally yourself to keep rising to the occasion, all right? That might be your challenge that you have to face, drumming up that energy. And I know all too well about that particular facet there. Having energy is of huge importance, I would say. So find that work wedge that you need and leverage it past the fulcrum, I say, all right? At least once you find it. Don't get bogged down in that social anxiety either. Just see that as another challenge, I would say. Those things can be huge. Energy sucks. And as I've heard from, I don't know, maybe the simple machines relation kind of thing, if you have a long enough lever and the properly placed fulcrum, you could lift the world, they said, with just one finger. I don't know if I'm making that up. I want to say I heard that somewhere. So maybe take that metaphor into perspective when there just seems to be some daunting challenge you can't overcome. All right. That said, that's what I had to say about the breakdown. So let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, let me get the book centered here so I don't fall too far out of frame for you. Those born on the 7th day of the month are ruled by the number 7 and by the planet Neptune. And because Neptune is the watery planet ruling visions, dreams, and psychic phenomena, March 7 people can be rather unstable, particularly since Neptune also rules their sign, Pisces. And such strong Neptunian influences can make for sensitive, dreamy, and imaginative people who at some times have trouble focusing their diffuse energies. And those ruled by the number 7 traditionally like change and travel. All right, not a lot said, but you know what? They just had those very specific singular dynamics influencing you. So I thought they imparted a lot of value with respect to that. That said, let's go back to that page I originally started out on and see if I can add a little bit more context or value to it for you here. The number 7 in the planet Neptune for a dual Neptune rulership, the planet of dreams, visions, psychic phenomena, and highly imaginative objectives, and an irresistibly magnetic influence said to dissolve barriers and rigid or absolute natures, as mentioned elsewhere in the book for Neptune. For most people, this period, there's a focus on higher ideals with respect to higher causes, also romanticism, and that has been a particularly interesting focus here in the period itself, considering the rulership of Neptune. But more recently, that focus has become more individually faceted, I would say. There isn't these higher causes that there's so much commitment to. And here I would say that seems to be the focus here for you as well. And I would argue it's probably, in no small part, contributes to your complex personality that you're said to possess there. And having this freedom of mind to roam with abstract issues. All right. I'd also argue it lends to an isolated nature and the social approach that they have been mentioning here. But also trouble with focusing any diffuse energy, like they said. That spread out energy, the stuff that goes everywhere. Especially considering the bolstering of as much, considering this dual rulership. So you might get those powers very intensely because they're in on you like a laser there. And if there is any kind of idealism baked into such things, high ideals, that would be the other reason as well. But I don't know that they mentioned that too terribly much here in this particular breakdown, because some of these other days have been getting that with a hyper laser focus. And here I didn't pick up on that as much, but I'd say it's still baked into the bargain for you. That having been said, that's been your numbers and your planets, so let's move on to your tarot. That's right. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but hey, it's here in the book. Sometimes we can make some more connotations with the breakdown, sometimes not, but hey, hopefully we can see what we see. See what we can cook up here in the kitchen as we get on with the tarot. All right, here we go. The 7th card of the major arcana is the Chariot, which shows a triumphant figure moving through the world, manifesting his physical presence in a dynamic way. And the card may be interpreted to mean that no matter how narrow or precarious the path, it is the correct one. One must continue on. The good side of this card posits success, talent, and efficiency, but the bad side suggests a dictatorial attitude and a poor sense of direction. which isn't good if you're on a path. That's right. You gotta find your way, right? So what I have to say about the tarot. Here we go. The Chariot for manifesting one's physical presence in a dynamic way. All right, and continuing on a chosen path regardless the challenges. I would say right from there, the description fits you to a T, all right? For positives of success, talent, and efficiency, which I would say in no small part speaks to the breakdown as well. Being beset with these challenges that you face, external or otherwise, and committing yourself towards practically realized expressions of abstract ideas. Like I said, that's a huge challenge for a lot of people, all right? And that could be manifested in an infinite number of ways. So if you have some kind of approach like that, boom, I would say the Chariot speaks to it, all right? Which that also again takes talent and skill too, all right? So negatives of a dictatorial attitude, poor sense of direction, pretty interesting within the context of the path metaphor. But you know what, dictatorial attitude, you start getting a little bit of success, you might start barking commands at folks, and you know what, there's that social dynamic rearing its head again. A lot of folks don't like being barked at, all right? So you got to understand and cultivate the leadership skills to know your people and who needs barked at and who doesn't. But that's a whole different dynamic, so just take that into account, I would say. What else do we have here? Yeah, so watch the dictatorial attitude, the poor sense of direction. One could argue that's part of it too. Hey, leadership's its own path that you got to find your way through. So hey, man, don't get off track. Even though you're bound to, just keep pushing on. You can maybe strike another path to get back onto the one you should be on. That's if you get off track, that is. That said, that's been your tarot. Somewhat apt card, I would argue. But let's move on to your health. All right, here we go. Those born on March 7 must be extremely careful with their health. All right, because of their great sensitivity and their receptiveness, they are prone to many types of infections and allergies. And these can ultimately overstress their lymphatic and blood systems, constantly forcing the body to react and defend itself. And it is important that March 7 people pay particular attention to their diet. All right. Usually restriction of dairy products helps in reducing mucus and phlegm deposits. They don't often bring that up. All right. A well-rounded diet featuring regular meals and an emphasis on grains and lightly cooked or stir-fried vegetables will also help. All right. As far as exercise is concerned, moderate to vigorous physical activities is advised relative to general conditions and energy levels. Dancing is usually very suitable for March 7 individuals, along with all physical endeavors that involve graceful movements, all right, such as skating, swimming, yoga, and Tai Chi. Getting sufficient sleep is important to those born on this day, but they should not indulge in excess since it can easily become a means of escape from the world. All right, you know what? This has been a huge health entry. Why do I say that? They covered all the bases, all right? And they haven't been doing that since back past maybe Capricorn, I would say. But they covered you here pretty completely. They hit all the wickets, I would say, outside of the psychological facet, maybe with the social dynamics there. But that one's a rare inclusion anyway. So, again, I stick by my argument. That said, I might be burning down everything I have to say about the health. So, let's get into it here. You must be careful with your health, as you may be quite sensitive to infection and allergies, all right? This comes up once in a while, so it's not altogether too surprising. But as to the cause, who's to say? You're trying to tell me that the planets affect how sensitive I am? Hey, maybe. I don't know. I'm not an astrologer, but you know what? It's here in the book, so at least bears keep it in mind, I would say. That said, take stress off your lymphatics if possible, all right? It's a Pisces body area specifically, so that may be why it gets brought up. And they don't often bring up the dairy or the milk. It gets mentioned once or twice, and a lot of times if it does come up, they don't say why, and here they told you why. So like I said, they're hitting all the wickets here. Avoidance of dairy recommended to that end. All right, regular meals with a focus on grains and vegetables is unusual considering they haven't been making mention of specific foods. All right, since, like I said, back past Capricorn, and it was something they did regularly. So again, they hit that wicket for you. And I would say they chose those specific foods because they help to ground you. All right, Neptune folks are said to have their head in the clouds. You have the dual rulership there, so you're pretty up there in the air, I would argue, from the astrological standpoint. So something else to ground you, all right? Moderate to vigorous exercise is a little bit interesting because I don't think that Neptune folks usually get recommended vigorous exercise unless maybe Uranus is in there shaking things up with a co-rulership dynamic there, as it's said to do. But I would say, again, it's there to help ground you, all right? So pretty interesting in that respect. But it's usually reserved for Mars to help them excise their god of war-like tendencies and aggressive energy there. But here nor there, something I found interesting. Also, a good deal of grounding, it sounds like. Rest is also essential for Neptune days specifically. And one thing they didn't mention was getting your dream time. That only seems to come up for Neptune days. But they did bring in rest, and they also talked about not using it as an escape. Something else that often gets brought up for Neptune days and was baked into the breakdown. So mind yourself, you don't get into that escapism too much. All right. Now, one thing they didn't mention, though, was the drugs and such. A lot of people, a lot of times when these things come up, they talk about avoiding hallucinative drugs and such because the escapism facet in there, it's just more prone to self-destruction there. So, that might be one thing they didn't hit wicket-wise. In the event, they only have so much space, right? So that's been your health entry. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go. Strengthen your position. Formalize your abstract thoughts and communicate them to others. All right, and don't get mired in self-criticism. Allow others into your private world and give more of your true self. All right. Hey, I like it. I like it a lot. A lot of stuff that is a little redundant, but hey, you know what? Sometimes we need to hear things 37, 38 times before we finally caught into it, or hear it in different ways before they finally make sense to us in some specific way. In the event, what did I have to say about what they had to say? Let's get into it here. Bear with me. I had to write it in a book, ran out of space in the notes, so I might fumble a little bit. Here we go. They said, strengthen your position. All right. I say fight the need for that safe space in times of defense or criticism. All right. Look at it as a challenge. All right. But sometimes you do need that safe space. So, what do you call it? Retreat when you must, I guess. All right. Formalize your abstract thoughts. All right. The miscommunication of such things may lead to some of your issues, I would say, especially with that baked-in social dynamic. All right. But making them concise outside of just your mind, well, that avoids many confusion and criticism. So yeah, try your best to paint that practical image for folks so that they can gain access, but only seems to work in your head, I would say. But I think you're up to that task based on the breakdown. All right, what else? Don't get mired in self-criticism, all right? We almost forgot the individualized facet for the day, I would say, with this Neptune aspect here. You're more so individualized, I would say, than those other folks who have the higher cause in mind. We can be our own worst enemy, too, in that respect. So practice self-awareness. Huge through line in the book, even though it didn't really get mentioned today. I think it was between the lines a little bit, but a lot of the times they mention it directly. So cultivate self-awareness. At that point, too, you probably understand why you do the things you do, and then you can function a little bit better knowing those things. And know when to push and when to pull and when to avoid and when to escape, all right? So what else they have to say here? Allow others into your private world and give more of yourself. You're said to be an isolated individual in several different various ways. You may have to let people come to you. So maybe show them the courtesy of not being at arm's length, especially if you especially if they make the trip to see you, all right? So give them a little bit of consideration in that respect. You also have the double magnetism from Neptune, all right? So people may come, all right? Especially if you live in the likes of Iowa, ostensibly. For a little bit of a Field Dreams reference there for you. And this is a Neptune day, the day of dreams, visions, and illusions, so I think it works out well. That said, that's been your advice, so let's move on to your meditation. That's right, it's your birthday, you get a meditation, something to reflect upon if you like. All right, here we go. Following our dreams can lead us to freedom or imprisonment. Oh, I like this one for you. I really do. All right, once more. Following our dreams can lead us to freedom or imprisonment. All right, that's been your meditation. I'm not going to throw my spin or interpretation on it for you. It kind of defeats the purpose of it being a meditation. But I do like it for you, that being said. So in any event, that's your meditation in a can. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up the objective or practical mirror, if you like, and see where we got the girth and we're otherwise maybe a little more atrophied in those respects. That's right. Your strengths, here we go. You're conceptual, you're sensitive, and you're giving. Interesting. I would have thought sensitive may be a weakness, considering how they applied it to the health specifically. But, you know, here nor there. Your weaknesses. Let's get into your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up that practical or objective, abstract mirror in your case, but flip it to the side that blows up your face, right? Maybe shows off the things you're otherwise a little more superficially insecure about there, and the social dynamic conception of the book here, considering that was something they focused on so much. Your weaknesses. All right, here we go. You're diffuse, you're withdrawn, and lonely, they say. Lonely. Ugh, that one's kind of ugly, isn't it? All right, you know what? A lot of times I like to make the case that our strengths can help us overcome our weaknesses, if there's something that even need improved upon. And I also like to make the case that our weaknesses can be strengths in and of themselves. It just depends on the situation and how you apply them. So let's see if I can make my case for myself. I've been struggling and floundering the past few weeks, but let's give the old college try, shall we? Let's take it as a challenge. All right, here we go. Your strengths, your conceptual. How are we going to use that to overcome our weaknesses? Hey, you know what? You're going to come up with some abstract idea as to how to approach figuring out your weaknesses or improving upon them, I would say. Perfect. Conceptual. Sensitive. Hey, you know what? That can be a strength in and of itself, too, even though it's kind of mentioned as a weakness in a lot of cases here. You are open to what's going on around you. They're going to influence you one way or the other. So if the weaknesses are that thing that are coming in, hey, how is that influencing us? It's cultivating that self-awareness once again. And that sensitivity can be applied to anything. And you know what? If you're empathetic, you know what? It's affecting me this way. Maybe it affects other people that way. And what kind of ideas does that generate? What kind of tools or things can we gain from that particular knowledge? And it all came from you being sensitive to as much. All right. You're giving also. You know what? How is that going to help us improve upon our weaknesses? Here's the thing I often like to argue. If you're giving to other individuals, of your time, your attention, etc., they're going to cotton to or be more attracted to you. And then you know what's great for needing to improve upon things or when you need help? People that are close to you. And if you were giving to them of your time, I would say they're probably going to be giving to you of their time to help you improve upon the things you need their help with, or your weaknesses, if you like. That said, what's the case to be made for our weaknesses being strengths? Well, you're diffuse, so you're spread out everywhere, all right? And I think I see what they mean with that as a weakness, to say, it's too fickle, you're spread too thin, all right? But that said, what are you learning from being spread out so far everywhere? I would think you'd pick up on a lot of things, a lot of knowledge out there. And so that's a huge strength. But just be mindful you don't spread yourself too thin. Maybe you're not picking up enough information from the wide sprawl that you got out there. You're just picking up on them little minute things. So you need to bring that focus in a little bit, I would say. But there again, it's a bit of a strength, I would say. Withdrawn, hey, you know what the thing about withdrawn is you get yourself an opportunity to focus on those things you might be diffuse about. A lot of the times these folks that come up, are the subject of the folks that comes up where they're withdrawn and isolated, it's because they're in there doing the work. They're shutting themselves off from the world so they can focus. So I would say it's a strength in those regards. But I think what they're getting at with this as a weakness is the social dynamic they're drilling down on. Once again, you're too withdrawn. You're not getting yourself out there enough. And you may function a lot better with social interaction. Those March 4 individuals, they flourished when they were isolated, but there was still a little bit of a social dynamic in there, all told. That said, you're also lonely. How can that be a strength? You know what? It's huge because it affects us in so many different ways, from depression to, I mean, and that social facet in there too. Hey, you know what? They're really drilling down on it. So I see where they're coming from. But if you can rise to the occasion, even though you're lonely, cultivate that self-awareness, know where we're weak, where we're strong. Hey, you know what? We have that self-knowledge about it. I would say that in itself helps us bolster and rally in times of that loneliness, all right? You let it live a little while. You know you're going to be fine at the end of the day, and then you put it away, all right? And what can you learn from the loneliness? You build up a strength, a muscle from it, I would say. Some folks don't put themselves in the position of being lonely enough, so when they are lonely, they hit the doldrums there, and then they can't necessarily rally themselves out of it without a lot more help. And so I would say it's a strength to be able to have experienced as much, and then you might be able to be giving of other people who are in those same doldrums how to get them up out of it. All right. Again, I think I know where they're coming at it from a weakness standpoint. Again, it was probably pretty socially focused, but I think we can use it as a strength in a lot of regards too. But if you need to improve upon those things, you know what? I think you know how to do it. You got the strengths to do as much. That said, I also like to argue that don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether, because they make you who you are, all right? They're an important facet of our being, if you like. So in any event, there's been your strengths and weaknesses. I don't know that I made the best case, but it's certainly a better case than some of the days previous. In any event, that having been correlated, your strengths and your weaknesses, let's turn to those born on this day. That's right. Let's see who shares your company. And maybe some of the things that have been gone over will make a whole lot more sense if we can, apply them to somebody we may have a general knowledge of. Sometimes these folks, I've never heard of them, so that may be the case here today, who's to say, but you know what? I also think it's important that we turn our focus to figuring out our passions. This serves as a great time to start figuring such things out, all right, if we don't necessarily have such a thing in our life. See what these folks did to cultivate some kind of notoriety, at least to get in the book here. And I mention this because a lot of times I get out in the world and I meet folks and ask them what they do. More importantly, if they like it, and they don't a lot of times. And I think it's just because they got out of school and right into a job to help make ends meet. So the fatal flaw was the job may have had nothing to do with things they were interested in, if you like. And I think it's important we're doing things that we actually enjoy doing, that we get fulfillment from, all right? And so that's what I want to focus on here today as we hear about who shares your company. Maybe we can take some inspiration from what they did and start applying it to ourselves, because it takes time, energy, and work to sometimes figure out our passions, let alone what we like. And so if there's anything I can wish you on your birthday, it's that you're putting yourself in the mind space of figuring out your passions. And if you already got that figured out, well then, hey, the hat I'm not wearing is off to you. Maybe then we can just start drilling down on carving out the time to make it financially viable. And if you've already got that in the can too, well then, hey, just maybe you enjoy finding out who shares your company, what lottery you drew. So let's get into it here. And be mindful, I'm probably going to mispronounce all the names. All right, here we go. We start out with Luther Burbank, the experimental horticulturist, and developed many new strains of fruits, trees, and other plants. Interesting. Hey, you know what? It dovetails with the visual representational image too, doesn't it? We also have Piet Mondrian, a Dutch American modern painter, Maurice Ravel, a French impressionist composer, Kobo Abe, a Japanese playwright and a novelist, and responsible for Women in the Dunes. We also have Ivan Ledell, a Czech tennis player and 4-time ranked world #1 3-time French, U.S., 2-time Australian Open winner, a computer whiz, and speaks 6 languages. So a polyglot in the mix. I think that's what that means. We also have Joseph Nepis, a French 18th century physician, produced first photograph using the camera obscura. We also have Janet Guthrie, an auto racer, the first woman to race in the Indianapolis 500. We also have Franco Harris, a Pittsburgh Steelers football running back, 8-time rush at over 1,000 yards. And also the Super Bowl MVP of 1975 and a teammate of Lynn Swann. And we have Lynn Swann, the Steelers wide receiver, Super Bowl MVP of 1976, and a sports commentator. We also have Anna Maganini, an Italian film actress, Ben Ames Williams, a short story novel writer responsible for Leave Her to Heaven. We also have Mary Norton, a U.S. Congresswoman of New Jersey, 27 years, this says, and Labor Committee chairperson, and a working women's champion. We also have Gabriel Hogg, H-A-U-G-E, rather, Hogg, or Haig, perhaps, probably more appropriately, Haig, an economist. All right, and we have Roger Revelle, an oceanographer, Thomas Masaryk, Czechoslovakian Democratic Republic president, Edwin Henry. Let me move the book here to stay in frame. Edwin Henry Landseer, a English painter and a sculptor. We also have Albert Karel Wilnick, Dutch painter, Anthony Armstrong Jones, a British photographer, and it says Lord Snowden, rather. So maybe that was the moniker they gave old Mr. Anthony Armstrong Jones, or Lord Snowden, if you like. Peter Carey, Australian novelist of Oscar and Lucinda. And finally, Peter Wolf, a songwriter and a singer of the J. Geils Band. All right, and I know it's a big-ass tall order to take inspiration from other people's accomplishments, but like I said, hopefully if I can just help you stir up the fires of inspiration, start driving after figuring out your own passions, then I think it was a worthwhile endeavor to focus on as much. That said, I know I mispronounced a couple names in there. I didn't do as badly as I thought I would. Let's butcher things on my side. It's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics is the best tool for pronouncing names. That's right. That having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, except to say your season is winter, your sign once again is Pisces of the Pisces II period specifically, and your quality and elements is mutable water. And this has been March 7th, the day of abstract structure, all right, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elvers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description, right above a personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents. So if you're interested in checking out the message, go right ahead. And if you're interested in picking up this book, hey, you know where to go to save yourself the hassle of typing it in a browser. It makes an excellent coffee table book. That's how it was introduced into my life. It's a way to break the ice, do something interesting during a party or when you have company over. Hey, you know what? It's going to do a lion's share of the ice breaking. If you need a tool to help you, and you know what? It says you don't like to be social. Hey, you know what? Take that weight off your shoulders if you find yourself in the position, I would say. In any event, book having been relayed, that's not what's important here. What's important here, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday once again, all right? So happy birthday once again. And for everybody else who joined us to celebrate or just here randomly, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you took something of value. I know I find value in a lot of these different birthdays that come up, even though they're not mine specifically, and there's so much things or knowledge to appreciate or to think upon. And we're in the kitchen. That's where you cook up the ideas, right? That said, I hope you enjoyed yourself. But for the birthday boys and girls, once again, I just want to thank you for the pleasure of your time, even though I don't think I said that once before. I want to thank you for the pleasure of your time. It was a privilege to share your birthday with you. All right. I like doing these things for folks. It gets me out of the bedroom, if you like, of the dollhouse there when I'm sleeping, and gets me doing something proactive. So I hope you enjoyed yourself too. That said, before I forget, before I take us out, Your daily numbers. That's right. Get yourself out there. Let the universe show you that it's with you on your path, that path of yours, all right? And just see what it cooks up for you, what it brings into your path for you, where it leads you. Sometimes we need to go explore certain things. Expand that curiosity, if you like, and maybe help you drum up some more abstract ideas. If I can wish anything else for you on your birthday, it's that, all right? So those numbers apply to you other ladies and gents, too. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. Doesn't have to be your birthday. That said, once again, hey, happy birthday, all right? Take care of yourselves. Get off the dairy. Eat some of those grounding foods. Get yourself down out of the clouds once in a while, all right? And don't be too dictatorial when you find your success, all right? So once again, happy birthday. Take care.